I am Eric, and I am a director AD, and I've been doing this for goodness since, well, I started in the business in 1985, I believe. Yeah, so it's been a long time now. I've seen it go through a lot of changes, and I started as a PA, production assistant, and got into the Directors Guild as a second AD, and became a first AD, and then started directing too.
And where was this all in Los Angeles, or did you start in Arizona?
Well, I started. I moved to Los Angeles, but my first paying job was actually with Lynette. My first paying job was on a movie called Raising Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen the Coen brothers' first movie, Blood Simple. Thought it was really amazing, and being fresh out of film school, I wanted to work on something, on their next project. And as luck would have it, they were filming a movie in Arizona. So I forget how I found out about it, but I remember calling my parents saying, "Is it okay if I move back in for a few months if I can get on the show?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So we moved back to Scottsdale, and somehow they hired us on Raising Arizona with no experience at all. But it was a really great experience to be on, and it was unlike any movie I've seen or worked on since, and it was a great sort of opening into that world. And I learned quickly that not all movies were going to be like the Coen Brother movies. But that's actually in the long run, that's a good thing, is to sort of have the experiences of both the good and the not so good.
It gives you benchmarks, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's I think what the whole career is like. It's like it's peaks and valleys. You can be on some projects that maybe they just pay the bills, and then there are other projects that are passion projects, and you can feel that there's something special about it. And sometimes they may not be the most successful at the box office or on television, the ratings, but I often find that some of those those movies that they wind up getting, or series, they get discovered down the road, and they have a longer life than their initial run. And some of the things that are big hits sort of fade away quickly. So it's
And
a long game, definitely.
and you probably get a sense of satisfaction out of a lot of projects that never make it big.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, uh, you know, we have no control over who sees the film or who doesn't see the film, or who watches the series or not. The one thing we can do is we make it as good as we can, and then it's out of our hands, and it's out to the public, and just hope that people respond to it. And but it is satisfying when a project takes on a sort of like an afterlife. After the initial run, it starts to pick up steam. It becomes either a cult hit, or it becomes a just as history moves on, it becomes like a more project.
So how do you deal with, I know that this is a really slow, awful time in the business for most people. I'm not sure if you're affected by that right now, but how do you get through the dips, the not busy parts?
Right. Well, I would have to be honest, and I feel a bit guilty about this. I've been very, very fortunate to have to I was able to work pretty much through COVID, all the way through, and then again post strike, we were able to once the strike ended, we were able to go right back to work. And um, I'm I'm still working, currently, and I'm just extremely grateful, because it's been a hard time for a lot of people in the business. A lot of people who are really good, who just, I can't explain it. There's just not enough work out there, and the whole landscape of the entertainment business, the storytelling business, movies as well as television, streamers, whatever you want to call it, it's going through a very profound change right now. And I honestly don't know where it's headed. We have theories, but it's real. It's a real change. And we could see it coming too, a little, independent of the strike and COVID, I just think that some of that just ramped it up. There were so many outlets, so many streamers. It's like I equate like a pizza pie. Like before the dawn of the streamers, you had like maybe 6, 7 slices of the pie to choose from. And then that pizza pie became like 37 different slices to choose from. Well, with 37 slices, you're not going to be able to, the profit margin is not as great because it's everything's been watered down. And so there was a bit of a gold rush mentality the last few years where every streamer was they were all trying to get in the game and spending a lot of money to make very expensive shows, and I think they had a hard time recouping that. And so now there's a shift, to sort of correct it. There's a correction, and we're seeing it right now, currently, where they're like this. The show I'm on currently is called The Pitt, and it's a John Wells show for HBO Max, and it's a hospital show. And we're doing 15 episodes, which is unusual for a streaming show. That's a big order, and it looks almost like what the old network model was. And almost the entire show takes place in a hospital, and not even that. It also takes place in one day, story-wise. So each episode is 1 hour in the same day. So it's like 24 meets ER, I guess you could call it. And it's a good show. It's really well written, and it's well made. It's but there's a certain formula to it that allows it to sort of you can make more shows. That way you can amortize the cost of building these big sets. It's an enormous hospital set that we've built. It's very intricate and full of hallways and open spaces and rooms. So we spend literally every day shooting that with very little exterior work, and but it pays for itself, by creating more episodes. Whereas in the past, they would do like 8-episode series or 6 episodes sometimes. A big one would be maybe 10, and those were hard to, I was on the show Perry Mason, which was a really, 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 I loved working on it. Took place in 1930s Los Angeles. It was very film noir like, and beautiful writing, great performances, and production value. But and it had a good audience too. But because it cost so much to make, and we only did I think 8 to 10 episodes, it was hard for them to recoup the cost because it's so expensive. So that's and so the show got canceled, and that just sort of is indicative of a lot of shows right now being made, that were being made. They're falling victim to that.
So I suppose, until somebody invents a new business model that works, things are going to be in upheaval for a few more years. But let me just back up and talk a little bit about, for people that don't know, what does an AD do, and what's the difference between a first and a second AD?
Okay. EDs they manage the set. They schedule in the global picture. We schedule the shows. We take a script, we break down the script, we go through all the elements of the script, what kind of props are going to be used, we're doing special effects, visual effects, makeup effects, what kind of picture cars we're going to have, everything. What the actors schedule, which characters in each scene, and it's sort of organized by scene by scene by scene throughout the whole script. And so we then take all those elements and we schedule how to shoot the show or the movie. So the first AD actually creates that schedule, and then the second AD, and then with that schedule, we go on set and we run the set. We manage the set with the director. When we're in charge of safety on set, which is quite an important function. The second AD is is actually, I think, a very challenging job. The second AD has to take all that information and disseminate that information to all the departments and make sure that they make the call sheets, which is like the document which shows what the day's work will be the next day and the next day and the next day. They're always working ahead, using all the information that they've gotten from the first AD and through the prep process to, get it out to the crew, to the actors, to, every department that there is. And so we're set managers, I guess you could say. And it's, I think it's a fun job because you're on the floor, you're right there in the thick of it, and you get to see some really exciting moments captured. So that's what we do.
So, is it a natural progression to want to be a director after you've been an AD?
For some, yes, and for some, no. I think it's becoming a director. I think it's like, for me, I love directing. I've always loved directing. I just fell into this AD thing because I was a PA for a while, and then it just was a natural evolution. You have a chance to make a better living at it, and it's great to get into the Directors Guild too, because they have a good insurance plan and pension plan, and they protect you. It helps with your pay. You're protected. So yeah, there is no one way to get into directing. I think it's one of those, every director you meet, they have a different story. But in my case, working as an AD, I always felt like it wasn't just about the schedule, making the thing. It's about doing good work first and doing it safely, but doing good work first, that then leads you and doing it within the schedule. Whereas some ADs, I think, get caught up in just the schedule. We just need to shoot this and move on to something else. And that's a common thread with some ADs. So I think what helped me was, because I cared about what we were putting on screen, some producers and writers recognized that, and they championed me to direct some episodes. They asked me, "Do you want to direct?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And then it went from there.
I know you've worked on some feature films in addition to series.
Yes.
What's the difference as a director between the two?
Well, it depends on the feature film. If it's an independent film, the director has a lot of, I think that they have a lot more say in the final cut and the overall tone and sensibility of the project. In a bigger studio film, there's more money being spent, and with rare exceptions, like if you're not Steven Spielberg or James Cameron or someone like that, you are answering to a lot of different ideas, a lot of different sensibilities coming at you. It could be from the studio, it could be from the producers, it could be from the actors, and I think that's a sort of takes a very skilled politician to work their way through all of those channels. In television, the show, the director is there, mostly they're guns for hire. So you're brought in, there's already a culture established, already a tone established for a show, and that's usually established by a combination of the writers, the showrunner, who oversees everything, and and maybe there's a producer director there, someone who did a pilot, or someone who's been brought in to sort of help give some cohesiveness to the aesthetic and sensibility and tone of the series. So they want you to be creative, but also work within the parameters of the show, which is not always a bad thing. That can be good. It's going back to, I remember going back to the Coen brothers. I remember we went there was a scout. We were looking at a set, and the production designer was showing them the set, and they thought it was okay. And one of the two, I can't remember if it was Joel or Ethan Coen, said, "Don't show us this if it's good. Give us this and make it look great." And that always stuck with me. And that carries on television too, because sometimes you don't have the money to do this. But if you do this really good, it creates a sense of the illusion is created like you're seeing more than you really are. So yeah, in television, the difference in television and movies too is, you know, you have much more time shooting a movie. And that can be a good thing or a not so good thing, because sometimes there's a lot of indulgence in that. And whereas in television, and it's amazing. I find in a lot of television series, you know, the quality of the production value is as good as the films that we're seeing right now. It's really remarkable what's going on there. And you have, you know, like this show we're shooting right now, The Pit, we do it in 9 days. And we shoot a lot of scenes and a lot of pages, that's sometimes up to 10 and a half pages a day. And we do a lot of trauma scenes with a lot of visual effects and special effects and makeup effects, and it all comes together. You know, you sort of find a pace. You know, there's a nice pace to television. I think that's that you don't have time to indulge. You have to really be clear and focused. And the good news is that the writing on television has been so good lately. You know, in the streamers and television. So I find it kind of energizing to work in that world right now.
Do you, as a director, ever get to have any input in the editing process?
Yeah. I mean, we get you get a director's cut. You get to make so after an episode is shot, I believe we have 4 days to edit. Usually, what happens is the editor will put together an assembly or a rough cut is more like it, and then the director will come in, look at that, and then, you know, add his or her thoughts and sensibilities to it, and you know, try to shape it in both with what they were envisioning, but also honoring what the tone and the sensibility is of that show too. You know, honoring all the moments that the showrunners are asking you to clock. So yeah, so it's okay. It's fun.
Jessica?
I have a quick question, which is because that's an hour-long episodic, and which the hours can be really grueling. What kind of hours do you shoot on those?
Well, I've been lucky. Well, the good news is a lot of shows that are doing those long hours, they're becoming less and less, those shows, because it's not safe to have people work 14, 15-hour days, you know, and especially if you're doing a night shoot and you're driving home in Los Angeles, for example, you're driving home in rush hour traffic. You're driving home in a parking lot after being up for 16 hours, 17 hours. That's not good. So I know some of the studios are imposing time limits on you know, how long you can anyone can work, actor, crew member, whoever. They like one of the studios has a 14-hour rule, all hands. So no one can exceed 14 hours. And that's long enough anyway, 14 hours. I think what's happened lately in general with production, especially television production, is the equipment and the lighting and the digital, the opportunities that digital is affording us makes it easier to you know, shoot scenes. You're using less light. The cameras are lighter too. There's just more fluidity to it. We're not carrying on big heavy pieces of equipment like we did in the past. The equipment has gotten smaller and more easy to work with and faster, and so we're able to use a lot less light sometimes, a lot less. You know, the cameras are smaller and lighter. We're able to, you know, do a lot of things that used to require a much more equipment, much more, take up more space, work slower. It's totally different now. It's just very fast and streamlined. And, you know, if something isn't right in the frame, that can be digitally replaced very easily, or you know, if a boom drops in and the take is good, but you know, that's okay, we'll just paint it out and post. It's not that big of a deal. Things like that.
So if someone wants to follow your career path, assuming there is such a path, it seems like there's a lot of serendipity involved. But but what advice would you give a student who wants to get into the business and either be an AD or eventually a director?
The advice I would give is just do it. Just go out there and do it, and be humble. I mean, I tell this to all the people that who I hire on shows, that new ones, because I'd like to try to keep like a stable of people that we work with, but eventually they move on, and you get new folks. I tell everyone, especially the PAs, and I live by this mantra too, by the way, which is the success, your success in this business, and on this particular show that you're being hired on, you're successful if two things happen. One, you get asked back for another season, or two, your boss recommends you to someone else. And anything less, because it's all freelance what we do. We don't we're not employees of a company forever and ever. We're independent contractors. And so everything, our careers are very much, based on your reputation. And so I tell them, be humble, learn. If you have it, you may be far more qualified to do what you're being asked to do. But whatever that simple task is that you're being asked to do as a production assistant, do it to the best you can, and do it with a smile on your face, and go forward, and and learn. The more you do it, the more you learn. Meet people, meet as many people as you can. Try to spread your wings. I mean, I got good advice a long time ago from one of my mentor. He was hiring me on quite a few shows, and I had an opportunity. I got called about another show, and I said to him, I said, I want to work with you. And he said, I'll always hire you, but you should probably take this other show, because it's good to spread your wings, just in case I retire myself, or I have to stop working, or something happens, or it's just good to just have as many connections as possible. And I took that to heart. So I've always kind of tried to keep myself moving, not staying in one place too long. And that's served me well, I think.
A lot of what we're doing is about mentorship. And
Mhm.
can you talk just briefly about the value of a mentor to a career?
Oh, wow. Sure. I mean, I've been mentored by many people, but it's, well, the first thing is, I've been doing this for many, many years, and I still find myself learning something new every day. I mean, that's part of what's fun about the profession too, is that, within a year, I'm part of the year I'm working on a 1930s detective show in Los Angeles, and then later in the year I'm in a modern show in a hospital doing triage work. And it's constantly changing, and the type of storytelling is different, and you learn different. You learn different sensibilities, different work approaches, and everything. Each show is its own. Each movie, each show is its own little uniquely finite experience. And mentorship, right?
Yeah.
My mentors, they've taught me a lot. They've definitely the spread your wings idea. Stay humble, work hard, learn. And also too, mentors who encourage me, see as many movies as you can, see as many stories as you can. That's fuel for the fire too. Is learn different, go see foreign films, and go back in film history too. I think a lot of, a lot of young people, film history starts with maybe Star Wars, and it's great to go deeper back, and you'll see things that influenced George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and all those, great filmmakers. And there's a whole world out back there that's full of really wonderful stories. And so that's that. Some of my mentors have encouraged me to do that, which has been a gift. Just to discover all different types of cinema and television. And just I find like all my mentors, they all sort of have that same drive and work ethic about just you're there to serve the film, not yourself, and or the show, whatever it may be. You're there to tell stories, and some other ideas, other thoughts. Some of the ADs I've worked with, they I like their approach. They were very encouraging. They're very positive on set. They're not this. There's a stereotype of the screaming AD. I've never been that person. I've worked with a few of those people, and I'm happy I'm not one of those people. They treat people with respect is always a big thing that was ingrained in me. And you get better work out of everyone. You want the set to be a place where people can feel as open and creative as possible. And when it gets oppressive and tense, that never leads to anything great. Maybe once in a while it does, but more often than not, it's not a good recipe for creativity. It's always been those kind of lessons that they've kind of ingrained in me. And also when we're scheduling things or sometimes in a complicated project that has a lot of elements going on, I've learned that, my way of doing it, which I've learned from my mentors, which was start big and work your way in. Don't start in the middle of it and get caught up in the weeds. You can't see the forest through the trees. Start big and just slowly work your way in, and it'll become simpler and simpler. That's what I think our job is, to take complicated things and simplify it so we can go forward. And it helps quite a bit.
When you're done with a project, where do you get your biggest satisfaction from a finished project?
Well, there's two types of satisfaction from it. One is, one thing I love about what we do is that we have a job, a task, and no matter what happens, we complete it. Whereas a lot of people have, their jobs just kind of keep going and going and going and going, and there's no completion. We actually have to finish our job. And there's always a sense of satisfaction when you do complete it. And then there's the satisfactions when you see it all put together too. And if it comes out good, it's kind of magical. And you know that you played a small part in that too, or maybe a big part of it, but we were involved in it, and it's a matter of pride, in that too. The other piece of satisfaction, this may be going a little bit off the rails, but not to sound too aware of the world about this, but what I really have grown I didn't realize how much I love this until later, but I love that, it takes a village to tell a story, and you can have, it doesn't matter whether you're male, female, young, old, what ethnicity you are, what your sexual preference is, what you identify yourself as long as you do a good job and can get along with the people you're working with, you're in. It's like, and I feel like a lot of us who do it, I'm only going to speak for me, but I feel like I'm not qualified to do anything else but this. I could never be a lawyer or a doctor or anything. This is what I do, and I love that sense of camaraderie and family that we develop when we do a show, and each show, each movie, and even a series that goes from season to season. Even if you bring back most of the crew, there's always some people who make it back season 2 and some who don't because they moved on to other things or whatever. So each season or show is its own unique finite experience that only we have. And then we move on to the next one, and then the next one, and there we have these these unique finite experiences, and before you know it, you look back and you realize it's a career. And that's very satisfying too, especially as I'm getting up there now. So
time does go very fast in retrospect.
It does indeed, very fast. Yeah. I blink and I feel like I was just a PA a few years ago. Instead, I'm, getting toward the end of the road.
Any particular movies that influenced you as a youngster or as a beginner?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that for some reason I love watching movies, and I watched a lot of films I probably was too young to really see, but my parents were somehow they knew that I knew that they were just movies. I don't know. So I watched a lot of horror movies growing up. And my parents took me to a lot of movies that they would go see. Like I remember in the early 70s, like seeing The Godfather and French Connection and The Last Detail and All the President's Men and all these pictures that are, landmarks now, The Conversation um, and then and they also took me to some foreign films too, which was interesting. I don't know why, I don't know how that happened, but I wound up going to a lot of foreign films then too, and that opened my eyes up to a lot of great cinema. And occasionally, my dad and my grandfather, they would take my brother and I to the drive-ins because we would want to see some horror movie at a drive-in or something. And my dad, after work, we would get in the station wagon, go to the drive-in. My brother and I would sit on top of the station wagon with a speaker. While my dad or my grandfather was down below, and they would pass out halfway through the movie. And we just stay there and watch. Sometimes they had triple features, and we'd watch triple features, which is crazy to think about. And we'd be up late watching, Night of the Living Dead, and whatever else was playing with or something. So all those things have a cumulative effect. You realize that there's so many different types of films, so many different types of storytelling genres, and I guess that's the theme I keep going back to, which is, it's great to expose yourself to as much cinema as possible, and really, it enriches your life, but it also makes you better at your job too. It makes you more informed. It makes you things are referenced all the time, and if you know what that reference means, that's a feather in your cap.
Did you study film? Did you go, was that
was right.
this always your thing, or you just went, oh wow, I heard about the Raising Earth? Like, I never asked you this. What was the beginning? What were your very, very beginnings? Are you glad that you did have an education?
Okay. I think I know what you mean, Lynette. The thing is, I did go to film school. I went to San Francisco State, and I had, prior to that, I'd made a lot of, Super 8 movies and goofy, like when I was a really little kid, we would just do like, myself and friends in the neighborhood, we made like a Planet of the Apes movie, which is basically just, an excuse for all of us kids to, put on stupid costumes and like, stage fight scenes with each other, and we would do that for a while. And then I did get into film school, and which was great, and it was eye-opening. But this is also in the early 80s, where the internet wasn't around there. We didn't have all these resources that we have now. Everything was still on film. It was much more of an analog world. And so in order to expose yourself to different kinds of cinema or filmmaking, you sort of had to go to film school, or you had to, you'd go to art houses and see films and take courses that were like, foreign films or documentary films or whatever it may be. Today, it's a whole different world. I mean, I don't necessarily know if a student needs to actually go to film school. There's nothing wrong with film school. It's great. But, like what we're talking about now is a form of film school that wasn't available to me back then. But, you can find almost any film online, from around the world. You can, find amazing, in-depth, deep dives into the filmmaking process on a lot of websites. One like instantly, my mind went to this website called Cinephilia and Beyond, which is an incredible website about, where they do deep dives into films mostly from the 60s and the 70s. And the screenplays are on there. There's amazing interviews on there with the filmmakers, and that's its own form of film school too. So, and the other thing is, these devices that we have now, you can make a film on a phone. You can make a film on with anything, and you can edit on your computer. You can edit. There's so much you can do. Special effects are on the other end of the keyboard. So. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I just think that there's just a lot of opportunity out there that we didn't have back in the day. And I think it's kind of exciting right now, seeing what people can do.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for having me.